Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. Two elderly Israeli women abducted by Hamas are undergoing medical treatment in Tel Aviv after their release from Gaza. Norit Cooper and Yocheved Lifshitz were taken from their homes during this month's violent attack on southern Israel. They're the third and fourth people to be freed by Hamas. Yaakov Amedor, a former advisor to the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, told the BBC the hostage situation was complicated.
We are making a lot of efforts to understand the situation of the hostages. Hamas is a sadistic organization, doesn't tell even the names of those which are still alive and those which are dead in his hands. And we don't know the full number of the hostages, and we don't know how many of them are alive and how many of them are dead.
Despite the latest hostage releases, Israel's military says it has no intention of reducing its airstrike on Gaza. The IDF's chief of staff said unrelenting attacks would fully dismantle Hamas. Yolande Nell is in Jerusalem.
Palestinian media report that dozens of people in Gaza have been killed in Israel's latest airstrikes, including in a refugee camp on the coast, where Israel's military said it had hit a Hamas target. While Israel's military has indicated it has no intention of curbing its bombardment, there are more signs that Israel's international allies are pressing for it to give time for negotiations to free other hostages and allow more desperately needed aid into Gaza.
The Chinese government has told Israel that it has the right to defend itself, but that it also must protect civilians and abide by international law. Our China correspondent Stephen McDonnell reports.
In his first call with his Israeli counterpart since the start of the Hamas-Israel war, China's foreign minister said there was now a major choice between war and peace. According to the official readout, Wang Yi also said to Eli Cohen that his government had an obligation to abide by international humanitarian law and to protect civilians alongside its right to self-defense. He also spoke to Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki, offering Beijing's deep sympathies with the people of Gaza.
In other news, Ukraine has accused Russian forces of trying to cut off a vital supply road to the town of Avdiivka in the Donetsk region. Jenny Hill reports from Kyiv.
Most of Avdiivka's population have fled. Russia began a major offensive against the town earlier this month, and fighting has intensified in recent days. Residents described near constant airstrikes and bombardment. Russia wants this town badly. Its troops occupy the nearby city of Donetsk. Seizing Avdiivka too would make it harder for Ukraine to retake the territory. Efforts continue to evacuate residents from the town. One woman, who was living in a basement, told us that most of the people left were elderly and infirm.
Jenny Hill reporting. World News from the BBC. Tens of thousands of women in Iceland, including the Prime Minister, will refuse to work today. The strike has been called in protest against gender-based violence and inequality. It's the first full-day action of its kind since 1975, when 90% of Icelandic women took part. Industries, including healthcare, education and air travel, are expected to be disrupted. The International Energy Agency says nearly half of the world's electricity is likely to be produced from renewable sources by the end of this decade. In a report, it praises governments for making significant progress in the shift away from fossil fuels, but says it still isn't happening quickly enough. Poland's president will meet the leaders of the country's two largest parties today to discuss the formation of a new government. First, Andrzej Duda will host representatives from the governing right-wing Law and Justice Party, which lost its majority in elections this month. Later, he'll meet the main centrist opposition. Adam Easton reports from Warsaw.
President Duda must appoint a new prime minister to form Poland's next government. His political allies, Law and Justice, will be the biggest single party in the new parliament, but they lack partners to form that government. A diverse coalition of pro-EU groupings does command a majority and has pledged to work together under Donald Tusk as Prime Minister. Mr. Duda has not made up his mind, one of his advisers said. Instead of asking Mr. Tusk, he may first nominate a Prime Minister from Law and Justice, despite the challenges it faces cobbling together a majority.
Adam Easton reporting. The South Korean authorities have detained a small wooden boat carrying a group of North Koreans in what appeared to be a rare defection across the maritime border. The vessel was intercepted in waters off the eastern port city of Sokcho, near the de facto sea boundary between the two countries. The Yonhap news agency said 4 people were on board. BBC News.